Daylight on the road.
Budget cuts have forced councils to come up with out their schemes like the Poo Patrol that attract tabloid wrath and people like me. But the big money is being spent on something less visible to us armchair auditors. An army of professionals who've turned the cuts into a business opportunity. The management consultants.
Morning, everybody. Hands up those who've seen.
In this school near Plymouth, management consultant Shay McConnon is working the room.
Performance is linked to high self-esteem, isn't that right?
Shay makes his living re-energising council workers, teachers and other public servants with the power of magic.
So it's like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. If I throw away 1, 2, 3, you wouldn't expect me to still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards.
I want to find out if it works or if Shay is just conjuring an illusion.
So in our relationships, we invest. So I work late. When I don't feel it working, I smile when I don't feel like smiling. And all of that investment can go for nothing. However, at a time maybe when you most need it and least expect it, guess what? It'll be there for you. Miracles happen every day.
So Shay, you're a magician, but you're also a management consultant. So how would you describe yourself?
Most of my work is in organisations, helping people to develop collaborative relationships and improves their organisation's efficiency, their productivity, their bottom line.
You see, you haven't come in with a whiteboard and said, sack everyone. You've come in with a magic wand.
I said,
it's a different approach.
Let's be gentle with each other. Let's look at this together and how can we move forward.
Yeah.
And inside of here...
Like all consultants, Shay has a clever business plan. Once he's magicked his way into the room, he makes more money selling his very own management programme.
You're driving a lovely Jag. You've not done badly for yourself out of this, have you?
For Shay, helping the browbeaten public sector has given him an executive lifestyle.
The real fulfilment has come from being able to follow my passion. I do know it's actually making a difference to people's lives. And that's the primary driver.
On a squash court.
After a hard day's motivational magic, there's even time for a 1970s-style management workout.
Good return.
Oh, yes.
In these times, these hard-pressed times, the public sector is so squeezed. Is it really a good use of money, management consultants being brought in?
We're all about getting people's needs met at work. And, of course, the consequence of that is higher levels of productivity.
Whatever you think of Shay's shtick, he's just one of thousands of consultants being parachuted into the public sector.
Shag's back on the road.
Together they're being paid millions by councils struggling to cope with the cuts. I'm heading to Wales to meet a fellow armchair auditor who's become alarmed by how much is being spent on consultants in her area.
A food truck.
Hi there.
Hi.
Is that Liz?
I am.
I'm Jack.
Hello, Jack.
Nice
How are you?
to meet you.
And you?
Liz Haynes is an independent local councillor who also runs her own catering business.
How long have you had the burger van?
We've been on site here now almost 23 years. And, of course, we're award-winning.
Excellent.
Recently, Liz discovered her local council had hired a firm of consultants. They were paid £30,000 to help them find internal savings.
So you've got here some minutes from a meeting, and it's headed here Strategic Operating Model Assessment. What does that mean?
Well, it's a piece of work that the council have commissioned. My understanding is that it is a review on how to make savings in back office services.
The report was written by consultants PricewaterhouseCoopers, known as PwC. Over the following months, Liz spotted something alarming. The council were asking for more money for PwC, from £30,000 to more than £100,000.
This was a dramatic ramping up in how much they were going to get.
Absolutely.
And what did you think?
Hiring consultants to do work in times of austerity just really sits uncomfortable with me. So very concerned.
People walking past market stalls in sunshine.
I want to find out what's really going on here, so I've arranged to meet the Deputy Leader of Torfaen Council, Anthony Hunt. I want to know why, when they're told to make savings, they're hiring expensive consultants to tell them how to do it.
One of the solutions that many councils are coming to is to bring in independent management consultants. And I believe you've done that here.
Yeah, that's correct. I think it's good to get an external opinion in, to have a look at how you're doing things, if you could do things more efficiently. We've made a 25% saving in the cost of senior management in the last half a dozen years. That means we've got less capacity within the organisation to do some of this transformational stuff. And so every now and again, I think it's worth having an external view in, but only if you can demonstrate that gives taxpayers value for money, I think.
But they do come up with quite a lot of gobbledygook. One of the things they think you should do is we will support and enable services to focus on delivery by providing an effective service. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
Just, you know, it's like a classic.
I mean, I certainly don't get fooled by gobbledygook and management speak.
Although Torfaen Council pay PwC £140,000 in total, they said it's led to significant efficiency savings.
Jacques makes a call.
Could I have the press office? Yeah, hi, is that the press office? Jack Peretti here from the BBC.
And it seems they're not the only local council to have paid for a PwC report.
Hi, is that the press office? I was phoning to find out a bit about some work that's been done. Would you be able to tell me now how much this report cost?
What's more, these reports have a familiar ring about them.
It's called the Operating Model Assessment. Operating Model Assessment.
Finally, I've made contact with someone who can tell me more.
Great, yeah, great. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Colourful buildings overlooking a peaceful harbour.
Councillor Jacob Williams has been single-handedly investigating PwC's activities here in Pembrokeshire. He's discovered the local council paid the company £70,000 to help them find savings.
We received a report which was 180 pages long. I've got it here. It's gobbledygook, you could call it, corporate jargon.
The report's called Operating Model Assessment. What does that mean?
Well, it really, for me, sets the tone for the rest of the document. I suppose it's just looking at the council's way of operation, the culture, I suppose. But the information within the report, really, some of it is so basic that you have to wonder why council officers couldn't identify this themselves.
Give me an example of the sort of thing that they uncovered in their report.
Well, some departments still fax an attachment after sending an email.
Absolutely anyone could basically find that out.
These sort of things, yes. I would suggest a lot of what's in here is just a blueprint where the companies would just copy and paste the name of the local authority into them.
Back in London.
So why are all these councils paying firms of consultants hundreds of thousands of pounds for reports that all sound the same? Industry insider and former PwC consultant John Bennett has agreed to meet me to tell me why.
So talk me through what's going on in Wales. We've got a number of reports here, and they all seem to have a similar title, which is the Operating Model Assessment. Could you tell me what that means?
Well, essentially that means that you're going in to perform a diagnosis on the organisation, an overview. Very similar to if you take your car into the garage and you get a service from a mechanic. It's a standard approach, a short piece of work. It's what's called a repeatable proposition. So it's
like a template?
Absolutely like a template. And individuals in junior grades are trained in delivering a repeatable template. And so when they go into Pembrokeshire or they go into Cardiff, they'll all be working to a specific template that you can, in effect, just put
a different council's name on the front.
Yeah, and the same methodology.
Jacques walking the streets.
I'm amazed that all the reports I've seen, costing hundreds of thousands of pounds, are based on a template.
So how do these consultants manage to persuade all these councils to part with our cash? I'm going to meet someone who knows all the tricks of the trade.
Former consultant David Craig has years of experience persuading clients to pay big money for his services. He's going to give me a masterclass.
So David, once as a management consultant you've got your foot in the door of a government department, what do you do to get more business?
The first week or two, you haven't a clue what's going on, so you're fumbling around in the dark trying to find out what's happening. So to buy yourself time, you do a whole lot of general interviews all the way through the organisation.
Step 2, pile on the pressure.
The interviews have given you an idea of where to look for the dirt. So then you do studies in those areas. But what you're looking for is something that gives a big emotional shock. We want to take him to what we call the Valley of Death.
The Valley of Death?
Yes, where he loses confidence in his people. He says, well, how can this be happening? How can my salesman not be selling? He has to feel his world has moved and he really has to do something. Because if there's no pain, he's not going to buy. So down into the Valley of Death we go.
This is a dark place.
Yes.
But for you as a management consultant, this is the boon, this is the moment.
It's pure heaven.
This is ka-ching.
Yeah. So once we've taken them into the Valley of Death, now it's time for salvation. Now we go to the sunny uplands of it's bad, it's really bad, but don't worry, together, working together, we can save the situation. It'll only cost you 2 or 3 million, or maybe you need to buy a big computer system for another 50 million, who knows?
Oh my God. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, this wouldn't matter in a way if it was just in the private sector, but these companies are now operating in the public sector with public money.
Yes, I was at a conference of management consultants a few years ago, and one of the directors of a leading management consultancy said it's so easy to sell into the public sector because buyers are inexperienced, inconsistent, and incompetent.
Wow.
This was from the head of one of the largest consultancies that sells to the public sector. And everybody clapped and laughed.
Incredible.
But what about all the other reports that I've seen? They cost hundreds of thousands of pounds and could have much wider implications.
I mean, these reports are costing tens of thousands of pounds. You know, is that good value for money?
They're actually seen by consulting firms almost as lost leaders. Because when you go into an organisation and do a diagnosis, you're often lining up a larger piece of work further down the line. And so the expression that I heard many times in large corporate consulting firms is you land and expand. You start to uncover issues in an organisation and therefore put them under pressure.
It's like a plumber coming in.
It's very similar to it's very similar to what you see in people experience in trades. In the car industry, they open up the bonnet of your car and suddenly they found 6 things wrong with your car when you only went in for a flat tyre.
Vast green pastures.
It turns out land and expand is already happening in Wales. I've discovered 3 councils alone have paid PwC nearly £5 million. But this upfront money isn't the only issue. Something far more profound is going on. A type of contract that the consultants call risk and reward.
What a risk and reward contract means is that the consultants take a percentage from any savings they can find. In other words, they make money from the budget cuts. Profit out of austerity.
Colourful terraced houses.
Here in West Wales, Ceredigion Council has signed just such a contract with PwC. And I want to ask Council Leader Ellen Ap Gwyn about it.
One of the things you've done is to bring in outside management consultants. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that was after an open tender exercise. PwC won that tender, and we worked in partnership with them for about 18 months. They've been very helpful in that they've helped us to analyse the basis of our budgetary processes.
So when you say they're analytical in the way they look at things, what do they actually do when they come in? How does it work?
They've held a succession of workshops with different members of staff. You know, they've been listening first and then come back and talked through possible ways of improving, so not improving necessarily, but changing and redesigning services.
Couldn't you do that yourself? I mean, because you have a lot of highly paid staff here.
We've had a reduction in our highly paid staff, quite
Right.
a substantial reduction, and we've had a change of staff as well.
So you've got, so just to get it straight, so just so I understand what's going on, so basically you've had to get rid of a sort of whole level of administration, and in order to replace that, you've brought in PricewaterhouseCoopers to do the job that those people did do.
For a short period of time, yes.
It just seems, you know, in this time of extraordinary austerity, unprecedented austerity, you know, your council spent nearly £1 million on these people coming in, and so has that been value for money? You know, for you, what do you think?
I very much hope so. That is, I mean, when you compare that to 34 million that we've had to cut, and to compare that going forward with the way that we're having to restructure, I think it is.
I spoke to a PwC insider who told me about their strategy for when they go into a council.
Well, if you speak to the ones that come here, you'll find out quite soon that they haven't had an easy ride in here. They've been challenged and challenged and challenged.
This is their strategy, right? It's called land and expand. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but I can see through them when they come. If I don't want something, I don't have it.
Land and expand is we get our foot in the door, and then basically we create a strategic partnership with them, and we expand the job once we're
No, they haven't, I'm afraid.
So have they landed and expanded you,
They've
Ellen?
landed, but they've been contracted. And in that I mean opposite to expand, rather than the contract.
So how long is the contract for?
It's finished. They're out, they're finished.
Could you tell me the nature of the contract that you had with them?
No, I'm sorry, that's commercial. I can't speak.
It's commercial.
It's
so
commercial.
This is public. You're a public body. This is public
but it's a
sector
commercial.
money.
I'm sorry, it's a commercial contract between council and a private body.
Okay, so there are cuts to public services to the public, and you cannot tell me, because it's commercial, the relationship with it.
Indeed.
So do you think the public don't have a right to know what the relationship with this contract
That is the legal position we are in.
You feel that you can't tell me?
That's the legal position we are in.
Okay. Could you tell me what a risk and reward contract is?
You need to look that up yourself. I'm not going any further on the contract.
Have you heard of a risk and reward contract?
I have, but I'm not going any further on the contract. I'm sorry.
Well, just if we don't talk about your specific contract, but just generally what a risk and reward contract is.
No, I'm not going any further on any contracts. That's it. You've had what you want from me. I think we should perhaps finish this.
Well, I've just got one more question. Just one more question, Ellen. It's been said that PwC will receive 16% profit on every cut
I'm not going to comment at all on the contract. I've already told you that. That's the end.
But the public here...
It's the end of the interview. Sorry. You're going too far now.
Ellen, it's literally knowing about the 16%. Is it right or is it not?
I'm sorry, I'm not discussing the contract. I told you that.
They make 16% profit on the cuts that you make. So it's a company profiting from the cuts.
I'm not discussing anything about the contract.
Do you think it's right that a company should
Look,
make...
will you please get out of my room? The bloody lot of you. I've had enough of it.
So I've just been asked to leave the building. The leader of the council has walked out of the interview very, very angry. And the thing that made her angry was me asking about the nature of the contract with PwC. She called it commercially sensitive and said she couldn't speak about it. But we're talking about huge amounts of money here that are passing to a private company. And it does seem extraordinary that I'm not even allowed to ask the question. Why is it so difficult to find out?
PwC wouldn't meet me, but they sent us this statement. We are often engaged by local authorities to help them improve their services and reduce costs in the face of continued financial pressure. It is important that our work delivers a tangible return on taxpayers' investment. We therefore work with clients to demonstrate the value and effectiveness of contracts. Our fees are often and increasingly dependent on the performance of our services, whereby we are only paid in full if we deliver the full benefits agreed at the outset.
In time-lapse, clouds drifting over London skyscrapers.
I still need some answers, so I'm meeting the man who speaks for the consultancy industry, Alan Lehman.
Jacques walks past a column-fronted building.
Could you explain to me what a risk and reward contract is?
There are more and more people in our industry who are saying to clients, what you really want to do is buy an outcome. You want to buy a result. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to share some risks. So, OK, we might take a basic fee, but on top of that, we'll be paid by the results we deliver for you.
We were in Ceredigion in Wales, and they had a risk and reward contract there, which basically delivered 16% return to the management consultants there on all the public service cuts that were being made. Mm-hmm. The more cuts that were made, the more money they make. Is that correct?
We all understand that savings are being looked for, and we need to improve efficiency in the public sector. And that's one of the areas where really skilled management consultancies can make a difference.
Yeah, well, you haven't answered my question. I asked whether the management consultancy firm were actually making a profit on the austerity cuts being made there because of this risk and reward contract. Is that correct or not?
Well, it means what you're doing is you're giving the consulting firm every possible incentive to deliver savings for the taxpayer, and that's, to my mind, a real benefit for the country.
How widespread are risk and reward contracts within the public sector in Britain?
It's limited, but there's a desire, certainly at the top of government, because we've spoken to them about this, to see more being done.
Do you think it's moral that a management consultancy firm are making money out of the cuts that are being made to public services in this way?
I think it's moral if the objectives of the project are moral, and if they are, I think it's absolutely right that they should be rewarded for achieving what the public sector wants to achieve.
When it comes to transformation projects, they don't come much bigger than the top-to-bottom reorganisation of the NHS in England. Conceived here in Whitehall 6 years ago.
This ambitious reorganisation of the NHS promised to be the most radical shake-up in its history.
As the government put its plans for the NHS into action, one firm of consultants were involved in meetings with officials, McKinsey. It advises governments and private companies across the world.
What people at McKinsey have in common is a desire to see things improve, whether you work in the private sector, the public sector.
Tamazin Cave has been investigating McKinsey's role during the time of the NHS reorganisation, and she's built up a dossier of revealing correspondence.
What are these conversations about? What's going on?
These are fragments of conversations. In the correspondence, you see McKinsey firing off an email to all the top of the Department of Health, all the senior officials saying, right, we're ready to start work with you, we're ready to dive in, hope we can help. You see McKinsey being involved in discussions around the new structures for the NHS. You even get them sitting in on board meetings, even to the extent where board meetings are being held in McKinsey's office.
One man who recalls the presence of McKinsey is Dr. Lawrence Buckman, who represented GPs during the NHS reorganisation.
Wherever you went to a meeting, somebody from McKinsey's was there who had written a report that appeared to be a fait accompli, and those of us who thought that we were actually going to have a say in how this was going to happen were continuously sidelined, or we were told, well, this is how it's going to be. It was always the same experience.
As the NHS was overhauled, McKinsey was employed across the organisation, and their services didn't come cheap.
Tamsin, do you have specific figures about the amount of money that McKinsey are taking from the NHS?
We know it's many millions, and then after that you look to spending data, you can see there's 800,000 here, another 500,000 there. Similarly, you can go to NHS England, they will have spending, they've spent hundreds of thousands, probably now totalling millions, and it's described as NHS England running costs, but that's going to McKinsey.
We asked McKinsey about their work in the NHS, and they said, like other consultancies, McKinsey & Company has provided advice to different parts of the NHS, improving patient care and the management of resources. Our work is the result of competitive public sector procurement processes. McKinsey aren't the only consultants being paid by the NHS. David Oliver is a doctor who's uncovered how much has been spent on management consultants across the NHS.
In 2013, I put a Freedom of Information request into the Department of Health asking them how much management consultancy spend had increased during the time of the coalition government. What the Freedom of Information request showed is that consultancy spend had doubled within the first 3 years of the coalition government, nearly doubled to £607 million, and I dare say it's increased beyond that since that time.
I mean, if that was money spent within the NHS, what could that do?
Well, £600 million would run a couple of medium-sized hospitals for a year, for instance. It would increase the funding for out-of-hours care by about 30%.
When you found out what you found out, how did you feel?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I could see with my own eyes what was going on around the place, and I'm afraid how I felt was it's a racket. And it's still how I feel now, really.
The management consultants may have cashed in from the NHS reorganisation, but has it helped deliver a better service?
So we've had years of upheaval, billions spent on reforms, management consultants have earned a fortune from it. Have we ended up with a better system?
No. We've ended up with a system that is more fragmented, more rushed, under much greater pressure, is unattractive for people to work in, and that patients are getting a less good deal than they were before the reform started.
Dr Buckman's just one of many experts critical of the NHS reorganisation, while the government says they're putting patient care at the heart of the NHS. But with management consultants now working right across our town halls and hospitals, just how far has their influence spread?